Israeli strikes have now killed more than 400 people in Lebanon since a ceasefire took effect in mid-April, including health workers, raising serious questions about whether that agreement exists in any meaningful sense. According to Al Jazeera, Israeli strikes in Lebanon have killed multiple people, including medical personnel, with the cumulative death toll since the mid-April ceasefire surpassing 400. The deliberate or incidental targeting of health workers carries significant implications under international humanitarian law. Al Jazeera's reporting frames this as an escalating pattern, not isolated incidents, suggesting the ceasefire is effectively defunct in operational terms. No formal declaration ending the ceasefire has been issued by either party, which creates a dangerous ambiguity. International condemnation has not, so far, translated into any mechanism to halt the strikes. Defense News reports that following last week's Trump-Xi summit in Beijing, President Trump stated publicly he was, quote, undecided on approving pending arms sales to Taiwan. Critically, Taiwan's government says it has received no formal notification of any delay, suggesting, according to Defense News, that backroom discussions may be proceeding without Taipei's knowledge. This is a significant diplomatic signal. Any pause in U.S. arms transfers following a direct Trump-Xi engagement would materially affect the cross-strait military balance and could be interpreted in Beijing as a weakening of Washington's deterrence commitment to Taiwan. The situation remains fluid and unresolved. Senior Ukrainian officials claim Russian battlefield deaths have reached 83,000 in 2026 alone, according to Al Jazeera. Moscow is simultaneously conducting active recruitment drives to replace those losses. Independent assessments cited by Al Jazeera suggest Russia's economy is under significant strain. It is important to note that these casualty figures originate from Ukrainian official sources, making independent verification difficult. However, even a partial confirmation of losses at this scale would represent severe degradation of Russian operational capacity. Russia has not publicly acknowledged comparable figures, and this claim should be treated as single-sourced and unverified by neutral parties. Al Jazeera reports that Supreme Leader Khamenei has issued a directive prohibiting the transfer of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile outside the country. This is significant because ongoing U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations had reportedly explored shipping enriched material to a third country as a confidence-building measure, a mechanism now apparently blocked by this directive. Al Jazeera notes this signals hardline resistance to a key Western demand. This report should be treated as unconfirmed until officially acknowledged, as it relies on reports rather than direct Iranian government statements. If accurate, it substantially narrows the available space for a nuclear agreement. Defense News reports that U.S. Special Operations Command has begun fielding Reveal Technologies' Identify platform, which allows operators to collect fingerprints, facial scans, iris data, and voice recognition in field conditions. Fielding, as opposed to procurement, indicates the system has cleared operational testing and is now in active deployment. Defense News frames this as a meaningful capability upgrade for identity intelligence in special operations. The practical implication is enhanced ability to identify and track individuals in contested or denied environments. BBC World reports that British researchers are approaching clinical trials for a vaccine targeting the Bundibugyo strain of Ebola virus, which kills approximately 1 in 3 people infected and currently has no proven vaccine. Trials could begin within months, according to BBC reporting. This represents a meaningful advance in biosecurity preparedness, closing a gap in coverage for a high lethality pathogen with documented outbreak potential. The development has no immediate geopolitical significance, but is relevant to global health security planning. Al Jazeera reports that Senegal's prime minister has publicly defended new legislation criminalizing same-sex relationships, characterizing Western criticism as cultural imperialism and what he termed, according to Al Jazeera, homosexual tyranny. Human rights organizations have condemned the legislation. The statement reflects a broader pattern across parts of West Africa, where governments are increasingly framing Western human rights conditionality as an infringement on national sovereignty. This posture could further complicate Senegal's relationships with Western aid donors, though the immediate strategic impact is limited. Strategic assessment. First, the economic picture. Russia's reported battlefield attrition is compounding pressure on an economy already strained by sanctions and wartime spending, according to independent estimates cited by Al Jazeera. Sustained recruitment costs and material replacement at high tempo further stress the Russian federal budget. Separately, any ambiguity in U.S. arms sales to Taiwan introduces uncertainty into defense industry contracts and cross-strait trade risk calculations, a concern that would register in regional currency and equity markets. Iran's uranium stockpile directive, if it collapses nuclear negotiations, keeps energy sanctions in place and sustains oil supply constraints tied to Iranian export limitations. On political stability, the Lebanon situation places the Israeli government under renewed international legal scrutiny, with the targeting of health workers potentially triggering UN Security Council debate. For the Trump administration, the Taiwan arms ambiguity creates domestic political tension between China engagement factions and the hawkish Taiwan defense lobby in Congress. Khamenei's reported uranium directive suggests hardliners in Tehran retain decisive influence over nuclear policy, limiting the room Iranian negotiators have to maneuver, a dynamic that undermines the domestic political position of any moderate faction seeking a deal. Senegal's government appears to be consolidating domestic support through sovereignty rhetoric, insulating itself from Western donor pressure, and the wider geopolitical consequences. The most consequential trajectory to watch is the convergence of Lebanon and Taiwan. If the Lebanon ceasefire is functionally dead, Al Jazeera's reporting implies a return to open conflict is a near-term risk, with regional escalation implications involving Iran-backed actors. On Taiwan, Defense News makes clear that Taipei has not been formally briefed, meaning deterrence ambiguity is now public, which is itself a signal Beijing will read carefully. Over the next 7 to 14 days, watch for a formal U.S. notification to Taiwan on arms sales, any UN Security Council action on Lebanon, and whether Iranian officials publicly confirm or deny Khamenei's reported uranium directive. Russian attrition figures, while unverified, suggest watching for any shift in Moscow's negotiating posture. The simultaneous unraveling of two ceasefire and diplomatic frameworks, in Lebanon and across the Taiwan Strait, marks this as a week where the architecture of recent de-escalation agreements is under its most serious stress test yet. If you want concise, sourced analysis like this, delivered regularly, consider subscribing to the channel. This brief is based on publicly available open-source information and is for educational and analytical purposes only.